Welcome to the episode of the Young Adults podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Ngosan Kandu, and I am the lead pastor for the Young Adults Ministry at Bread of Life Church International HQ. Today I'm joined by a special guest. However, before introducing the guest, let me find time to actually allow my co-host to introduce herself. Then we'll be able to introduce our special guest. Kawe, please.
Hello and welcome to this episode. My name is Kawen Kandu and I am the Young Adult Small Groups Coordinator. Enjoy the episode.
Awesome. The lady that I'm about to introduce, she's done a good job as a single mother. We'll be discussing a topic that is very important, how to navigate as a single mother and remain committed to God. She's done a great job. She's raised a 22-year-old woman, and she's doing tremendous work. So please, Deaconess Racheal.
All right. Thank you so much. Very strange that I'm on this side of the seat, because usually I would be the one that is doing a lot of interviewing. As Pastor has said, my name is Deaconess Racheal Mumba. I'm a deaconess at Bread of Life Church International. And as earlier alluded to, I have a daughter. My daughter's name is Juanita. She's 22 years old. Yes, she's 22 years old. We've had a fantastic journey so far by the grace of God. And I'm very honored and privileged to be here today to be able to share my story. And I hope it blesses somebody out there.
Amen. Thank you very much. I think before we actually dive into the questions, we just wanted to do a few rapid fire questions, just to get the ball rolling. If you needed to have, or if it were possible for you to choose to have dinner, breakfast, or even lunch with two people on earth, whether dead or alive, who would you choose?
Wow. I think, I would really love to have dinner with my spiritual father, Bishop Joy Makando.
Awesome.
I think he's an epitome of success in the walk with God, but also in the marketplace, but also how he's been able to humbly, build himself a name over the years with a lot of humility. I think I'd love to have an opportunity to sit down and ask him a lot of questions. Another person that I would love to sit down with and have maybe dinner with is what I always referred myself to as Oprah Winfrey, but in the gospel side of things. I love to sit down with Oprah and just see how she's been able to successfully become a media mogul, because I sometimes see myself as one of those people one day. So it would be such a dream come true if I would sit down with Oprah Winfrey, but most importantly, my father in the faith, Bishop Makando.
Awesome. Coffee or tea?
I'm a coffee person all day, every day. My people would tell you I'm very dysfunctional if I've not had a cup of coffee every single day.
Shima or rice?
Rice. I love rice. It's much easier to eat. I think Shima is a bit boring. I know that, I may offend one or two people out there, but I find rice to be something that I can eat every day of my life.
Awesome. Zambia or South Africa?
I am a Zambian by birth. I love Zambia, but I do consider South Africa also as my second home because of a lot of the stuff that I've been able to do in that country. But I think, to be fair, Zambia.
Awesome.
To be fair, Zambia.
Okay, no, sure. No, thank you very much for those answers. We'll now get into the middle of it. We are dealing with the subject, how to navigate as a single mother and remaining committed to God. Can we take it on, please?
Thank you so much, Pastor. Before I even get to asking the questions, I just want to put that out there, and just comment how a good mother you've been to, Juanita. We've seen her grow up into now this young lady, 22 years. So when you say 22 years, I'm like, 22 years already. You've done an amazing job, and you're a great mom.
Thank you so much. But to God be all the glory.
Amen.
If I'm going to be honest, I don't know how it has been done. I can only say that it's been by the grace of God, honestly speaking.
Amen.
Dealing with all the different phases, it has been God. through
It's
and
been
through.
God. We give Him the glory. So, how have you navigated and obviously still navigate being a single mother and still committed to your faith to God? How has that been for you?
I think I'll have to back it up a little before I can talk about my commitment with God and how being a single mother has been. I just want to put it out there that I grew up in a Christian home. I have been a child that has been very cognizant of God and His presence, even from as far back as I was a little girl, because then we were Catholic. And I was very active and very committed in the things of God. I was one of those kids that would read in the Bible, in church, the Bible. I think I was the first child in my parish then to have been given an opportunity to read the first and second readings, but in vernacular. And I went to a Catholic school, so you can only imagine I was very much around religion. But when it came to now moving on and becoming Pentecostal, we went to Bread of Life when I was only 11 years old. And ever since I had been around the things of God, I had been a religious child, I think, if I were to put it that way. I used to go to Sunday school. We used to have our Bible study in the house. I used to be one of those that would actually lead and pray. But along the way, and I think it was after my father died, I think I must have been in grade 10, when things began to take a different twist. I was exposed to different friends, different ways of life. And while I was in high school, I think, when I was at Kablonga Girls, I was introduced even to alcohol and clubbing and all these things, and that was right after my father died when I was going into grade 11. And life really took a different twist. Life became very hard. Mind you, at the time, my mother was still very much committed at church. We were very much committed at church. And in the year that followed, when I was in grade 12, I think my mother graduated into the School of Prayer. She was very committed intercessor, School of Prayer. So I was a child that was going around the things of God. Our house was a house sale, hosting a house sale, but I still had another kind of life, The worst happened even when I finished grade 12. Very committed at church, very active in the youth ministry, but still living a very double standard life. I would go to the club on Saturday and I'm at church on Sunday, that sort of thing. And we were struggling. Life was very, very hard at the time. And not to say that I was doing whatever it is that I was doing, because my mother did her best. I mean, she was a widow now, had lost her husband, but doing her best to make sure that she raised good kids. But, just at the time when I was about to get into college, I fell pregnant. I met a guy, I fell pregnant. Very disappointing to myself, because if you asked me, I don't think I was one of those girls that ever thought I could ever get pregnant. Maybe that's why I even got pregnant, because I was very naive. But I was very disappointed in myself, because I never imagined that I could become a teenage mom. But I got pregnant at 19, gave birth just slightly before I turned 20. So there I was, about to enter college, but now becoming a mother. So, it was very difficult, but I really had to make some very hard decisions within that space. I needed to make sure, first of all, I needed to accept that, look, you're pregnant, you're going to become a mother, but what sort of life are you going to give this child? And then my mother was very disappointed. I remember she chucked me out of the house, but thank God for the church family. We were hosting a cell group at the time, and one elder who was our leader spoke to my mom and said, what, look, this is a child that has made a mistake, and I think you need to just embrace her and help her. My mother couldn't have it, but she just agreed, because, okay, the elder has spoken. My church family was not, did not in any way condemn me. I think I remember. And this is the reason why I would actually go to church pregnant. I would go very ashamed. I remember going for the third service then, but I would only sneak in and out, because I didn't want people to see that I was pregnant. I would sneak in and out of church, because I didn't want my friends to see me, and because we had plans, at church we want to go to college. Many of my friends were already in college. Some of them were in university, the plans. So it was very shameful in the beginning, but in the long run, I think I had to come to terms with the fact that, look, this is what has happened. You need to step up and become a good mother, and the father definitely not in the picture, because I think we were both very young, disgruntled people that didn't know what we were doing. But for me, I took it upon myself to take responsibility of what had happened. I apologized to my mother, who didn't even want to hear that at the time. But I said, you know what, look, I was hiding. A lot of the times I was hiding from my friends, from my church people. I'd go to church every Sunday, but I was hiding. I was hiding from my sisters, who only later on found out that I was pregnant. I think when I was about a month into having my child. But, after the child came, my elder sisters stepped up. They took up the role of mothering. I think my late elder sister is the one that actually named my daughter Juanita. She was very supportive. She would buy stuff. Remember, we're still struggling as a family. They would provide diapers for me. They would provide whatever it is that they could to make my life comfortable. Mind you, at that point, there was no conversations about my future. As far as my family was concerned, I had failed. And this is the path. I'm a mother. There are no future prospects. So within that 1 year of having my child, my focus was to raise her and make sure that she was okay, she grew. So, but at the time that my daughter turned 11 months, I began to think about getting a job. So I got a job, my very first job at Manda Hill, and I started working in a retail store where now life was a bit, better, because now I could provide for my child. But that was all we could do, be able to just provide for my child. And mind you, there was still no prospects of the future, because nobody was willing to take on or sponsor a child who messed up her own life. As far as they were concerned, I was done with. So for me, even school was not something I would think about at that moment. My focus was Juanita, and to make sure that she was fine and she was taken care of. So it took me a while, really, between that time and the time that she was 6, for me to fully now come back to church and recommit. Because in the process of that, I would have relationships, I would still club, I would still go drinking, I would still do whatever, because
But
after all,
she was 6 years old now.
she was now, she was growing
1 and
between 1 and 6. But at the time when Juanita was 6, at that time I'd gotten a job, and I think we were a bit okay. And I'd actually gone into college. I'd gone to study public relations at the time. And we were sitting, I was feeding her. She was a problematic 6-year-old. She didn't like to eat. So that day, she told me something that altered my life completely. She says, "Mommy, do you know that if you stop, going to bad places, God will bring your love?" Funny as it was, I was very shocked. I was like, this girl. But then that really stuck. It stuck in my mind. I was like, what is my child seeing that has prompted? And mind you, in all this, I made sure that my child was going to church. She was going to Sunday school. She was grounded in the things of God. I made sure of that. But inwardly, I was battling with my own things, and obviously trying to find acceptance and so on and so forth. But I was doing it the wrong way. I was still mixing God, and I was still mixing the world, and I was just a whole mess. So that day altered my life completely. And, I started going for prayers in the neighborhood. This lady was praying with me and speaking into my life. And she was speaking great things. Things I couldn't even believe myself. But how does she's... So, it's that thing where you're thinking, in the sight of God, I think I'm very far. Is God even thinking about me, But I remember within that short space of time, I went back to church. This time around, I went back to church very different. And it was the crossover, crossing into from 2010 to 2011. And I prayed a prayer in that space. And I says, God, I rededicated my life. I think there was that sinner's prayer, and I prayed it again. And you can only imagine how many times I've had to pray that prayer before. But this time there was a certain level of sincerity that when I prayed that prayer, I meant it. And in the days that followed, I would walk, we'd now moved back to my mom's house in Materia East, and I'd always walk my daughter to school because she was at Bread of Life. And each morning, I would make her recite prayers, but on my way back, I would pray my own prayers. So I'd take prayer walks. And in that day, I remember praying a prayer, asking God, why I existed, what is it that I was doing here on earth,
Sure.
and is this how I come in and go? What is Rachel's purpose? And I asked God, I says, Lord, please help me to know your will for me. And then the other things, I would ask myself questions like, if you were to die today, and if God, or if Jesus came today, are you sure you'd make it to heaven with the sort of life that you live, with the sort of person that you are? Everyone else sees you at church and so on and so forth. But would this, if Jesus came and you stood right in front of him, do you think he would accept you? Those are the questions that I'd ask myself. So in that year, 2011, I endeavored to begin to be serious with God. I started praying more. I started reading my Bible. I told myself I'll read my Bible from Genesis to Revelation for the first time in that year.
Yeah.
I had never seriously fasted. So in that year, I told myself I was going to fast, I was going to pray. But I asked God, I actually made a list of things that I told God. I says, God, I do A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. And I know that you've got good plans for me, and I know that you want me to become a good person. But if you allow me to continue in these things, and at the same time follow you, I will, I will embarrass you. I think that's the word I used. And I want you to help me, Lord, deal with these things that I listed down.
Yeah.
And one of the things I asked from God is that, Lord, please help me to find a ministry to serve in. Help me to also start speaking in tongues, because I really admired that. And so in that year, I said, Lord, there's no resolutions here. The only resolutions that we're making is that I follow you. And if I can manage to do all these things by the end of this year, that would have been miracle enough for me. So 2011, we started, very difficult year, financially even, because I don't know the enemy, what he does when someone decides to become serious with God. He sort of, does the kicks of a dying horse. He kicks you very hard so that maybe you can think God is not with you. But when I look back in that year, I had achieved so much spiritually. I remember that year I joined the Emmanuel Praise. I was speaking in tongues. I was attending church 6 days a week except for Monday. Yes. I was so committed and I was so lost in the things of God that it was such an amazing journey. And that what sparked my journey.
Wow.
Yes.
Awesome.
And that's where it all started.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow. It was intense hearing
Very
your
detailed,
story,
yeah.
and very detailed.
I needed to give that background because I think without that background, sometimes also I think people do mistake you for having just been in church for the rest. Like, they have this perception that you are perfect. But I think I wanted people to realize that, look, I've been where they are or where they have been, and this is what God has been able to do for me. I'll tell you, I think I go to the best church in the world, honestly speaking. And I'm not saying this because I'm here on this platform, but very honestly, there was not a single day that I felt judged.